Hello and welcome to another episode of Soccerbeat. My name is Thomas Kwenaite, your host, and I'm with my good friend Raymond Hack. The reason why I've invited Ray is because a bombshell was dropped by one Lucas Ribeiro of Mamelodi Sundowns when he terminated his contract with the Brazilians. Now, to get a lowdown of what this means to the club, to the player, and all that, I would like to speak to Ray to give us a breakdown. But before I do that, please hit the like button and subscribe as well because it will help us grow. Now, Ray, Lucas Ribeiro terminated his contract with Mamelodi Sundowns and quoted the Lassana Diarra ruling. What is it? What is the Lassana Diarra ruling?
Okay. Well, thank you. And thank you for having me on, Tom. Firstly, how I can quote Lassana Diarra, I don't know, because Diarra was a 2014 case, which involved his club, which was Lokomotiv Moscow. At that stage, he terminated the contract with just cause, and Moscow took it to the FIFA DRC. The DRC determined that Diarra had no right to terminate the contract and that he'd breached the contract and ordered Diarra to pay 10 million euros. The matter was that was FIFA's decision. The matter then went to the Court of Arbitration of Sport, and the Court of Arbitration determined that that was the correct decision. And what happened is Diarra then wanted to join a Belgium club by the name of Charolo. Okay. But in order to join that club, he first had to have an ITC, which is an international transfer clearance. And secondly, he had to fulfill his obligations as far as the 10 million euros were concerned. The club at that stage pulled out of the deal because they said that they don't want to be responsible for the compensation. Because in terms of the ruling, if the player moved to another club, the club that he moved to had to pay the compensation. The player then took the Belgium Football Association and FIFA to the Court of Justice for the European Union. And the European Union was asked to make a judgment as to whether another club from another region could be responsible for the compensation. And they found that that was against the European principles for workers' rights and freedom to movement. But that related firstly to the European situation. This is not a European situation. The player has terminated his contract because he believes he's got just cause. If he believes he's got just cause, then he's got to go to the DRC and ask them to make a ruling on it. Now, the rumor is that there is a club in Qatar who happened to see the player at the World Club Championships, and now the player wants to go there. And he's alleging that Sundowns are asking for an exorbitant transfer fee. Now, Sundowns are entitled to ask for whatever they want. It's Sundowns' player. Sundowns have developed him. They've taken him to the World Club Championships. So, at this stage, there's no figure that the DRC have determined as to what Sundowns can or can't do. Sundowns at this stage are probably as shocked as everyone else that the player has just terminated the contract. And obviously, Sundowns will get their lawyers to dispute the claim that the player has done. The player can't just terminate and say, I'm leaving tomorrow because another club wants to offer me more money. And if that is the case, then the club must pay Sundowns what is due to Sundowns.
Two things, Ray. But the first one I want to find out is the league, I'm sure, started a couple of weeks ago, and Ribeiro's contract is supposed to end in 2028. Now, Sundowns have already played 4 official matches. Isn't he in breach of his contract because he's still contracted to Mamelodi Sundowns?
Yes, technically he is, unless Sundowns told him that you mustn't come to training, which I doubt that they would have done. He's still a contracted player, and as far as Sundowns are concerned, until Sundowns issue a clearance, nobody can utilize his services. So he certainly can't go to Qatar and go and play there because firstly he would need a clearance and only Sundowns can issue the clearance, or FIFA could issue a clearance if the DRC find that Sundowns have breached the agreement. But here the player said he's left the club. So the Sundowns haven't done anything wrong.
Ribeiro is represented by Jean-Louis Dupont, the same lawyer who won the famous Bosmont ruling. Now, he says that his client, Ribeiro in this instance, could not join Qatar FC simply because Mamelodi Sundowns kept on increasing the transfer fee. And he says the money they are asking is more than the valuation of the player. Is he correct in saying that? And who should determine the valuation of the player in this instance?
Well, so, the first thing, whoever represents him, the fact that every lawyer has a different opinion. So you'll get 3 lawyers and all 3 lawyers will have different opinions. As to the value that Sundowns are doing, Sundowns are the one to determine the value. Nobody else can determine the value. You've got a case in the United Kingdom at the moment with Alexander Isak, where Liverpool offered £115 million, and Newcastle say, well, he's worth £150 million. Well, show me a scale that determines what the value is. It's a thumbsuck. Everybody determines what they think the value is. 10 years ago, David Beckham would have been sold for £300,000. Today he's sold for probably 200 million. It's up to the clubs to determine the value. Now, Sundowns took the player to the World Club Championships. That's where the player was seen by the team from Qatar. And they obviously thought, well, okay, here's a player. Maybe because they think it's from Africa, you can get a cheaper player. But Sundowns are the one to determine the value. And at this stage, he hasn't said to us, or he hasn't said to anyone or released a report to say the value that Sundowns are asking is too exorbitant. If you tell me that Sundowns are asking 500 million for the player, I'll say, yes, it's exorbitant, because there's no player that's worth 500,000. But if you're comparing Ribeiro to a player like Alexander Isak, Newcastle believe that's what he's worth in England. Sundowns believe the player's worth X amount in South Africa, and they're entitled to their opinion.
According to the lawyer, they are prepared to the court of arbitration. What should have Lucas Ribeiro done? Should he have gone to the court of arbitration, or should he perhaps exhausted the existing laws within the South African Premier League? What should he have done?
He should have, he should have gone to the DRC here in South Africa, firstly. But if he wants to, he can't go straight to the Court of Arbitration, because what's he going there for? The Court of Arbitration will hear a dispute once. FIFA he wants a clearance. That's what he wants. The only people who can give a clearance are the DRC, or if he wants to go to FIFA and he's got grounds to go to FIFA. I don't know what grounds he would have. It's not for me to determine. They are the only people who can issue clearances. No one else can issue a clearance.
And Ray, here's another issue. The lawyer, of course, continues to say Sundowns are making the transfer impossible by demanding an exorbitant amount. What does he mean, really? What does he mean by that? Because as you quite rightly put it, Ray, that Sundowns are the ones who are entitled to determine how much they can evaluate Ribeiro.
Yeah. Well, firstly, he hasn't said what Sundowns are asking or what the figure is. As I said earlier, if Sundowns are asking a figure of 500 million euros for Ribeiro, yes, people will say that's exorbitant. But we don't know what Sundowns are asking, because it's not, it's discussion presumably between Sundowns and the player or the player's representative. But the lawyer certainly cannot determine whether the figure is exorbitant or not. If anyone has to determine, it would be the DRC or it would be FIFA or even the Court of Arbitration. But certainly a lawyer cannot say the figure you're asking is too exorbitant.
Now, Ray, Ribeiro is also pointing out that his next employer will not be involved in his dispute with Mamelodi Sundowns. Neither from a disciplinary point of view nor financial point of view. What exactly is he saying? What does he mean by that?
Well, that was the case in the Diarra case, because FIFA turned around and FIFA said, we will not issue an international transfer clearance until the compensation that the DRC ordered you to pay has been paid. Therefore, the Belgium club then pulled out of the deal. That's why Diarra sued the Belgium club. But that's in terms, the matter then went to the Court of European Union Justice, who then said it's in conflict there. But it's got nothing to do with South Africa. Until that player gets a clearance, he cannot play anywhere. It's as simple as that. It's up to Sundowns to say, yes, we will clear him. Or if there's a dispute between Sundowns and the player, then it must go to the correct places, be it the DRC, be it FIFA, be it the Court of Arbitration. But until he gets it, nobody can do it. Now, there are laws here, presumably in terms of when he signed in South Africa, that he's still here. He must go to the authorities here in South Africa. There's the PSL have got their DRC. If he doesn't like the decision, he can go and appeal to SAFA. But he seems to think that he can go all the way to FIFA.
Now, Ray, his contract runs until 2028. Now, if Sundowns want to be malicious, they can let him sit until that contract runs. If they are malicious, do they have that right? Can they just simply say, okay, you don't want to play for us, it's fine, sit there, we'll see if there is no club that is willing to pay the amount of money that we want, so just sit wherever you are? Can they do that if they want to be malicious? Maybe, I don't know.
Well, Sundowns are not to the type of club to be malicious, but if that situation did arise, as long as Sundowns continue to pay the players' wages, it would be the coach says, I don't want to play the player because he's not part of my plans or not part of my team, but we're still paying him the money in terms of the contract, then he would sit until the contract ran out, because he would get the money that he's entitled to, unless he went to the authorities to try and change that.
Now, Ray, clearly my reading of the situation is that Sundowns do not seems to me like they don't want to let go of him. But there's another dimension. What about the coach? What if the coach feels that Ribeiro's mind and heart is no longer in the club, rather just get rid of him, and can he do that? Is he entitled to do that, or is it up to Sundowns as it is? It is up to Sundowns to say, look, the man will kind of pollute the dressing room, so we can just let him go. Or they can just say, unless we get what we think he is worth, we're not letting him go. What do you think could be the scenario here?
Well, there's twofold. Firstly, the coach is the one that has to put the team on the field to play. The coach is the one who has to determine whether the let's call it the relationship between the players is good, that they can perform at the best. If the coach doesn't feel that that's happening with Ribeiro, then the coach will say, look, I'm not playing him. Sundowns, will then try and get rid of him, or will hold on to him. It's their decision. Nobody can determine that except Sundowns. But obviously, if the coach feels that the player is not contributing, then he won't play it. Sundowns won't force the coach to play the player when the player's mind isn't in the team, because it's not one man who makes the team. It's all the players on the bench and all the players that take the field.
Let's go back to the Lassana Diarra issue. After he won his case, we know that it goes way back to 2014. And now, after that decision, FIFA started a process to amend their rules. And now that they are in the process of doing that, Diarra is suing FIFA for compensation amounting to about £56 million. I'm looking at a scenario where, because Ribeiro is saying under the Lassana Diarra ruling, I'm also looking for my clearance under the same rules. Now, Lassana is suing FIFA for compensation. Could we get to a point where Ribeiro as well is trying to sue maybe CAF and Mamelodi Sundowns for compensation?
Firstly, the situation is that the Court of Justice for European Union found that the FIFA rules were not compatible with the Treaty of the Functioning of the European Union. The European Union, specifically concerning workers' freedom of movement and the prohibition of cartels. As a result of that, the ruling has prompted FIFA to initiate a global dialogue to review and potentially amend the regulations concerning players' contract stability and transfer to comply with European law. Okay, leading maybe to a change in the transfer market, but that's in European law. We in South Africa, we governed by the rules of the Confederation of African Football. Yes, if there's a dispute, then FIFA will get involved. But at this stage, CAF would be the one, and I don't see on what basis the player would succeed, because, as good as the lawyer may be for the Bosman case, that was many, many years ago, and there have been many cases since then. This was a case where the European Court of Justice for the European Union found that the rules weren't compatible with European law, not with African law or with CAF's rules and regulations. So it's a completely different ballgame.
Ray, I will certainly be watching this case with very keen interest, and of course with your assistance. I thank you very, very much for breaking it down to us laymen, and I think it's made it much more understanding, much more clearer. I appreciate it, and I thank you very much for always availing yourself when I need you.
All the best, Tom. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ray.
Soccerbeat, what?